Call of Duty Vanguard. Yeah, many things can be said about this game. The very few people who think about this game either think of the boring campaign, its multiplayer mode that had no real identity, but most I feel remember it for its zombies mode, and that's not a good thing either. In fact, it's remembered for being quite possibly the worst version of the mode ever conceived. Yes, even with taking this into account. On launch, there was no wonder weapon, no pack-a-punch camos, no Easter egg, no pausing even in solo, and even no round-based map to be found. Instead, they just gave us this. Anfang was seemingly the next evolution of Cold War's Outbreak objectives, mixed with smaller maps in order to be played through faster than Outbreak. However, this did the exact opposite. In this map, you spawn into a central hub with everything you need: the pack-a-punch machine, a crafting table, the new field upgrade machine, the covenants, and the mystery box. This is meant to be a place where the player can relax in between objectives and use points to upgrade their power. Now this is where the first problem arises. Almost everything is given to you from the start, other than the perks. This makes it almost pointless to open certain parts of the map, especially with it being so small. A similar hub area was found in Outbreak, but the difference in that mode is that you need to first complete the main objective in that area to unlock it. Here, everything's just right in front of you from the get-go. Surrounding the perimeter of the hub are a couple portals that, when entered, take you to different areas, whether it's just another location of the hub, a multiplayer map, and even Shi No Numa, where it'll give you certain objectives to complete in a time limit. Once complete, you get sent back to the hub, the round changes, and a new part of the hub opens. And that's the whole gameplay loop of the map. Just go through a portal, do a boring mission that lasts about 2 minutes, and go back to the hub. It's just a mess that tries to combine the Outbreak gameplay into extremely small, bite-sized, round-based style areas that, when doing so, completely removes what makes both round-based maps and Outbreak fun. In classic round-based zombies, the goal is to see how far you can survive with endless rounds of zombies, using points to open up the map and finding secrets along the way, which will give you more powerful weapons and abilities. There's very little downtime to relax, with only a few seconds between rounds. This keeps the player engaged and on their toes. Easter eggs and buildable items add a sense of exploration and accomplishment when completed that reward the player heavily, with a wonder weapon for example. Now if we look at Outbreak, even though I'm not the biggest fan of the mode, it had a lot of cool ideas. It has a more open world approach with multiple objectives scattered around, with a main objective in every location. While it's not as fast paced as a round-based map, there are still a lot of things to do and find around the map to strengthen your character and reward the player. Now you'd think combining these two would create for something good, right? Well, you'd think that, except the reality was that all the exploration, Easter eggs, rewards, buildables, and sense of accomplishment were all stripped away. Now, I'm not blaming the devs on this, because from what I've heard, Vanguard was extremely rushed and had a small team of people, but whoever was in charge of releasing Anfang in the state it was on launch needs to get fired. Same thing with whoever thought this godforsaken perk system was acceptable, but this video is supposed to be about what Vanguard did right, and I got a little ahead of myself. I just thought some background was necessary, especially for anyone who didn't play this game, which I'm going to assume is quite a lot of people. I had the idea to make this video a couple days ago and decided to go back to play the game after God knows how long, and I surprisingly found a few things that I enjoyed. And I did say a few because there wasn't too many positives I could scrounge up, but I did try my best. Granted, this will be based on the current version of the game, not the launch version, because if you would have asked me what I liked back then, I would have said pretty much nothing. But in this video, we will be looking at everything positive introduced into the game, going map by map, starting at Anfang. I do actually have a couple of good things to say about this map, with the first being the loading screen and the atmosphere. It goes by very quickly, and I shouldn't have to say this, but this is a pretty good loading screen. It's very reminiscent of the older games, and just is way more appealing than the more modern zombies maps loading screens. And even though the map is just a reskinned multiplayer map, the main hub, I genuinely think, looks amazing. It reminds me of the aesthetics that the original World at War and Black Ops 1 maps had. When you first spawn in, it's nothing special, but once you start to look around, the red glows of the dark ether leaking through a snowy nighttime Stalingrad blend together perfectly, and the bright moon in the sky is just the cherry on top. It makes me wish that this map was fully round-based with Easter egg quests and all, because I truly think it could have been a really fun map to play. The new zombies designs also look really good in this game. Adding the red dark ether glows and sigils to the zombies adds onto this game's unique aesthetic that I feel is missing from all of the other Dark Ether era games. And the same goes for the Stormkrieger. While a lot of people disagree with this take and say zombies shouldn't have guns, This enemy is an exception in my book. It's pretty unique compared to boss zombies from the past and isn't overly powerful. He's more of just a little pest walking around the map, but his design and attacks I feel work pretty well. Now this atmosphere is only really in the main hub. Once you start teleporting to different challenges and such, the locations become really boring, with there being just dull versions of other multiplayer maps, mostly being untouched. But man, I really just love how they made Stalingrad look, especially with it being a slightly different version of the Gorod Krovi spawn room. It was a nice little nod to Black Ops 3. Now, two gameplay features that I liked were the Covenant system and the rarity system changes. In Vanguard Zombies, you were able to obtain hearts in-game that allow you to upgrade your field upgrade or obtain Covenants for your current playthrough only. While I didn't care for the in-game upgrades for perks and field upgrades, I did enjoy the Covenant system to an extent. Going up to one of these altars will allow you to spend the hearts you get randomly from completing objectives on a character upgrade, which can range from body shots dealing critical damage, to enemies taking damage just from being near you, to even ammo mods like Cryo Freeze and Deadwire. While I don't like the ammo mods being part of this system, I do like some of the other upgrades in this Covenant system and wouldn't mind if it got brought back in some way in the future. The abilities were randomized every so often and got better as the game progressed. This is one of those features where it could have been so good if it was just changed ever so slightly. The other gameplay change that I liked was the rarity system, which is completely different than Cold Wars. In this game, there is only a 3-tier pack-a-punch system, and the different color rarities are different for each pack tier, which is how zombies should be. I don't really like how in Cold War and Black Ops 6 how there's 2 different systems for upgrading your weapons, and I really wish they kept this system going forward with the addition of something else like and that's pretty much everything I've enjoyed about Anfang. I wish I can compliment its wonder weapon and an Easter egg, but I really just can't. Now if we move on to the next map, Terra Maledicta. Now if we move on to the third map, Shi No Numa Reborn, this is where things really get good and is where the peak of Vanguard Zombies is. After months of absolute pain and agony, the developers of this mode decided to go back to making round-based maps instead of whatever these were, and since I'm assuming they didn't have a lot of resources, they decided to make Shi No Numa from World at War all over again. And it's a pretty good remake. The whole map itself, I'd say, is well made overall, and the only things that would make it better is a different perk system and animated cutscenes. This map more or less feels like a World War II reskin of a Cold War map, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing since I like Cold War. This is just one of those situations where the map is held back due to the game it's on. Everything this map introduces are welcome additions as well, like the new area fitting very well with the rest of the map. And while it isn't as expanded as D Machine was compared to Noct, it makes the map feel more like the map it's based on, unlike D Machine, which is an entirely different experience than Noct itself. I also very well enjoyed the new special enemy and Easter eggs. While Zabala was introduced in Terra Maledicta, I chose to skip that map because the two things I believe it does right are just put into other maps, making the map pretty much obsolete. And those two things are the new special enemy and the wonder weapon, which I'll get to when I talk about the Archon. But Zabala is actually a pretty unique enemy. She has 3 faces, and after you shoot one, you need to wait for her to teleport in order to shoot the next one. Then you just do that over and over until she dies. And whenever she teleports, she places mines on the floor that do damage to both you and other zombies. Her gameplay I feel like is a welcome addition, and it means you just can't shoot her down in 2 seconds, at least most of the time. Now when it comes to the Easter eggs of this map, mainly talking about the wonder weapon and its main quest, you first must build the Wonder Waff, the wonder weapon of the original Shi No Numa. Of course it was going to return, and it doesn't disappoint. Now the weapon is powerful, you know, just like how the Wonder Waff always is, but man, the quest to obtain it, I love it. I'm not gonna lie, I fucking love it. The only thing that would make it perfect is if the item pickups didn't glow yellow. That's pretty much it, because using traps to charge the weapon and having lightning strike down on it was cool as fuck to do, and felt like a classic wonder weapon quest, and finally building it felt rewarding. Now while the main quest wasn't the best, it also wasn't terrible, and it just felt like a what if the original Shi No Numa had an Easter egg. It doesn't negatively impact the map in any way. I genuinely had a lot of fun playing this when getting footage for this video, and I hope they put this version of the map in a different game, because I really do believe if the perk system wasn't just fucking terrible, this would be a way better map. Oh yeah, and they kept the cool Shi No Numa random perk thing. Now after the release of Shi No Numa, fans wondered, well, how are they gonna wrap this game up? Well, going back to the DLC 1 map, of course. Yeah, another reason why I didn't include Terra Maledicta is because the final map, the Archon, is literally the exact same thing with a different color filter, and it's round based instead of objective based. Same wonder weapon and everything. Now I do actually like this wonder weapon. The Decimator shield was a cool idea, but it is just a little lackluster since BO3 and 4 had shields like this in every map. So while it's not that special, it's cool to see it return, but I can't like it too much because for whatever reason, it doesn't negate damage from the back. Fucking why? Now the Archon is not a good map, the layout is meh, the atmosphere is ugly as shit to look at, and there's not a lot of things to do on this map, but the one thing I liked about this map is the boss fight. While it's not perfect, it is a very serviceable boss fight, and it's definitely where all the budget went for this map. While at first it's a classic giant bullet sponge enemy, as you progress through the fight you must grab these little rocks, feed them to these little pods, and once they're spit back out, you have to throw them at the pillars that will allow you to shoot the boss. It's not a hard fight by any means, but definitely seems like the building blocks for what we would see in the Modern Warfare Zombies mode and eventually in Black Ops 6. Not to mention that the boss arena is stunning. It takes place in the Dark Ether and Cortifex towering over you just looks cool as fuck. I like the red design when compared to the purple seen in other games, and I like how other areas of it look and how vast the Dark Ether can be. I hope we get something like this in Black Ops 6. It shows how alive this other dimension is, with different themed biomes with just life roaming around it. And while this area was also in Terra Maledicta, I'm pretending that pile of shit still doesn't exist, and I'm glad this game got at least one true boss fight. Even though there was no cutscene, which kinda drags it down, you kinda just kill Cortifex and poof, he's gone, that's it. There's not even a still image or voice line from Kraft thanking you. The NPCs want to talk non-stop all fucking game until you complete the Easter egg, but oh, now they want to be quiet. The last thing I want to talk about is probably my favorite thing about Vanguard, and it goes for all the maps, which is why I put it last, and that's the world building and the lore. While the Easter eggs are very lackluster and there aren't any cutscenes, the lore this game created with all of the gods I find is way more interesting than anything Cold War did. The story in that game didn't get interesting to me until the final map. In Vanguard, they tease Alistair Rhodes, they introduce gods for each of the field upgrade abilities, they introduce the GOAT. They overall give backstory on what was created in Cold War, and it's done in a more mystical way, which I find more interesting than the very scientific and militaristic approach of Cold War zombies. If you want a real deep dive into the Vanguard zombies lore, I'll link this video below, which does a very good job explaining it all. It's actually more interesting than you think, and connects the Dark Ether to the original Ether storyline, explaining how the old ones existed even during the original storyline. And this video actually does a way better job than the game does at telling the story, because you will miss probably half the fucking, more than half of the story by just playing the maps, because it's just, the game's just not that good. Now while Vanguard Zombies isn't a perfect game, nor is it a good game, there were still highlights to it and even one good map. These things don't excuse the negatives, which are much more present, but you can't fully blame the devs at the end of the day, and I have to say that because they're just doing their job and get told to make things that they may not even want to make. I'm just glad COD Zombies is out of the hole that it dug itself into years ago, and is becoming a fan favorite mode again with a lot more people playing it. And I just hope it stays that way throughout Black Ops 6's lifestyle and onwards into COD 2025, which is rumored to also have zombies. Wait. Oh shit, the first map of Black Ops 7 got leaked? Wait, what is it? Oh my god.